Hello and welcome to another HanSelah video, where I talk about all things to do about being a graphic design freelancer and running my own business. In today's video, I'm going to walk you through my entire brand identity process for a passion project that I decided to do. This project is going to be for a spice brand, like herbs and spices. I'm going to go from start to finish and you can see how I bring the brand identity to life. So let's hop on over to my screen. I'm going to shrink myself in the corner and I will talk you through my process throughout the whole video. First things first is the mood board. Mood boards are so important in the brand identity process. It really just helps visualize what you want to say. It helps you show this to your client in a visual way because, again, not all clients are visual and are artistic and they can't see what we see as graphic designers. So creating a mood board for your client is a very important step. So I hopped on over onto Pinterest and I got a bunch of different ideas that I wanted to do in terms of color, in terms of the logo, in terms of a pattern, in terms of packaging, so fonts and typography and iconography and social media post examples. I then hopped on over to Envato Elements to actually start looking for some beautiful fonts that matched the mood board. I use Envato Elements for a lot of my mockups and my fonts, stock photos, stock videos, all sorts of stuff. Envato Elements is probably one of my most used graphic design resources. If you're interested in checking out Envato Elements, I do have a link in the bio or description of this video so you can see what they're about. This is not sponsored, by the way. I just use them every day basically, and they have helped my graphic design business immensely. I'm not being paid to say this. I just wrote test to see what the different fonts actually looked like when you write them out. Then I went onto Pinterest and I drag and dropped them from Pinterest into my Illustrator board and I started creating a more refined mood board in Illustrator. So I started to play around and see how I envision this brand in terms of color and pattern and iconography, typography, the logo, social media examples, pattern, colors, particularly colors. I really love the colors that I had here. So as you can see, I'm starting to generate a color palette from my mood board. It's a really simple way of generating a color palette. If there's an image that you like in your mood board, you can ink drop the colors, and then from there, if there's a color that's standing out too much, go into your color guide and then select one of the different color guides that Illustrator actually offers, and then you can find a good color match. So that's what I did for the one pink color. Then what I did is I went into all the fonts and I separated them into 3 columns. The left column are the ones that I like the most. The middle column are the second best. The third column are the fonts that I like third. I started going through them and just refining my font choices, and I was then left with only a few different types of fonts that I really liked for this brand. But a font is not a logo. You can't just write out a word in a beautiful typeface and call it a day. That's not what we do. So I now go in and I mix and match different fonts. There might be letters from one font that I like and other letters from another that I like. I had this idea of maybe incorporating a little chili. I think Americans call them hot peppers, but we call them chilies in South Africa. But then I was like, a chili is a bit always the go-to for spices. Everyone does a chili. And I don't necessarily want to do a chili, but it kind of started to get my creative juices flowing. And then I decided if I want to include an icon of some sort, maybe I should think a little deeper, but it's always good to start somewhere. And then I thought of maybe incorporating the chili into the actual logo as a letter. So the letter C, I thought if I did like a nice rounded chili, it might work out. And it did, but I still wasn't sold on the idea. As you can see, I was referencing another chili shape to try and get that letter C made out of the chili, but I don't know. I personally didn't enjoy it. I don't think it worked. And then I was trying different versions of the word the and how I could place it on top, next to it, tilting it to the side, rotating it, putting it on a path. And I really like this whole mismatched typography font idea. I like the idea of it being a very playful brand. Now, the target audience for this company, I would say, is a more, yes, premium audience. This brand is not meant for a clean, minimalist audience. It's supposed to be maximalist and colorful and vibey and funky and just full of life. But it is still on the premium side of things. When you are doing a brand identity, it's very important to keep in consideration who your target audience is and who you're targeting. So now over here, this is when I started to branch out away from the chili, and I was thinking, okay, spices, herbs, bay leaves, thyme leaves, rosemary leaves, cumin seeds, mustard seeds. I was thinking of all the different types of herbs and spices down to the leaf. And so I decided to go with a bay leaf. I use bay leaves so often when I'm cooking. I love to cook a lot of curries, and bay leaf in a curry is beautiful. So that's where I got the inspiration for the leaf. And so I started to play around with the bay leaf. I doubled it up. I tried to put a little seed on the bay leaf. I tried to join it to the K. I tried to incorporate it into the letters, and none of that was kind of working, and I wasn't quite enjoying it. And then I decided to rearrange the letters a little, space it around, up and down. The amount of times when you're designing a logo, you go back and forth and up and down and left and right and change this, change that, do this, add a millimeter here, shift it to the right, shift it to the left, add a ruler, do this, do that. There is so many ups and downs that you go through in your logo design process. It's never just an easy, simple thing. Over here I was playing with the word the, and I was trying to do it in this beautiful script font, but it wasn't really working. Then I hopped over onto the Puppet Warp tool. I absolutely love the Puppet Warp tool. It's very cool. We have this in Photoshop, and then they brought it into Illustrator so you can do it for vector things. I adore it. It works so simple. It's such a quick and easy way to manipulate your type or any sort of vector shapes that you have in Illustrator. So I used the Puppet Warp quite a bit in this particular logo because there were just some areas that needed a bit of push and shove. So now we have the spice rack. I then started playing with a different font for the word the, but the word the kept throwing me off. I don't know, it just seemed a bit out. It wasn't tying in very nicely with the rest of the logo. So I actually just ended up removing the word the altogether. And I was kind of like, okay, cheers, bye. We're not going to use the word the anymore. So it's now just called Spice Rack. So what I was doing here is I was actually creating a submark logo. So this is something you would use on social media, like a social media profile picture. Something that is a lot more recognizable. It's a more simplified version of your logo, but it's not supposed to be completely different that it looks like a different logo. It should still be able to be easily identified. Think of a submark as the tick in Nike or the 3 stripes for Adidas. Now we have our 3 logos. We have the horizontal logo, we have the compact logo, and then we have the submark logo. Now the next step is to play with colors. So I started generating a color palette, and again, I really loved the colors that I had in the mood board and I wanted to bring those through. So I started to mix and match and figure out what I wanted. I originally really liked the red, but when I put it together with the other colors, it actually was just too bright and it stood out too much, and it just wasn't harmonious with the rest of the color palette. So I actually just left the red out and replaced it with a brighter lemony yellow color, and it actually worked out quite nicely. So over here, what I always like to do with my logos is I like to place it within my brand colors and mix and match the colors and see what works together and what doesn't. It's also a good way to see if there's a color that's standing out or not harmonious with the rest of the color palette. I then started working on the brand pattern. So I had the original bay leaf with the seed, and now I wanted to do a bunch of other little brand elements and icons that I could create a pattern with. So I actually took the leaf from the submark logo on the letter R, I rotated it and it actually looked like a chili. So I just added a little stalk and it became a chili, which is quite cool. Then I started adding little seeds, like mustard seeds. Those are the little circles. I added some thyme. So I just traced a picture of a thyme bush that I saw online, quickly finessed it, made it look nice and pretty. I then added a few additional little seeds, and then I dragged and dropped this beautiful spice image, and it had a whole bunch of different spice leaves, spice seeds, spice all sorts of stuff. So there was some garlic, there was some parsley, there was a basil leaf, a rosemary leaf, which is what I'm tracing now. There was some fennel, there was some, it looks like little wasabi peanuts, but I know that's probably not what it is. It's some sort of spice. There was also a star anise. So I started tracing all of these in the image and generating a pattern. But before I could actually form the pattern, I actually had to create all the little icons. Now that I have all of them, I then put it into the hex by row setting in the make pattern, and I started to rotate and play. I like to do my patterns first in black and white, and then I move them into the color version. So to do that, I select all my unused colors in my color swatches, I delete all of them, then I create a new color group where I drag and drop all of these colors into the color group. Usually I make these global colors, but I just didn't do it today. But usually it's best to make it a global color, then you've got them so easily accessible. But anyway, then I started to create the colored version of the pattern. So this one used various brand colors, and I just went to town and recolored the whole pattern. Quick and easy. Now we've got 2 patterns. I tested it with a background color, but it clashed too much. I didn't really like it. I prefer it on the white background. Then I moved on to putting the logo onto the pattern, but I did an offset path. I think I did it at a 6mm offset path, and then I just placed that on the pattern. But I wasn't actually feeling how the offset path looked, so I just drew like a squiggle. It almost like a little cloud, and then I placed the cloud on top and then put the logo on top. I went back into Envato Elements. Now I was looking for a spice jar mockup that I could use, and then I went on to Pacdora, and I also looked for a spice jar mockup on Pacdora just to see which one looked better, which one I liked. But they actually were quite similar, the 2 mockups that I found. Pacdora I really love. If you use my link in the description, you can get 20% off your subscription. But I really like using Pacdora because you can download their dialines, you can build 3D mockups, you can create 3D animations. So this is a really beautiful way for presenting packaging to your clients. I've used them for my clients before as well, and they make such beautiful mockups that really wow them. So if you're looking for a good packaging mockup company, use Pacdora, and don't forget to use my discount code HanSelah for 20% off. So then I moved on to doing the packaging. So I didn't really know what I wanted for the packaging. So I was playing here and there, and I was thinking, okay, the different types of spices can be different colors, which I thought would be quite nice. Like paprika could be red, wild garlic could be yellow, and things like that. But I wasn't really liking where I was at the moment, and I decided it's because the pattern that I was using was the full color pattern, and it was just way too distracting. So I minimalized, simplified the pattern down into shades of greens only, and then I adjusted the pattern from there. And as you can see, it looks so much better just having that simple color palette. And then I just did a little exclusion overlay of the pattern onto the dark gray background just to add a pop of, you know, spice with the pattern. And then I synced the logo and the herb, so paprika, to the same color, so they are both red. And then I changed the background, and I just started to export the final frames. Then I went into the 3D scenes and I started to play around, and I decided on this one that had one of the spice jars just by itself, and I like these little balls in the back. But then I went and I got the exact color codes that I was using in Illustrator, and I copied those color codes and I dropped them into Pacdora so that all of it was aligned with all the brand colors and brand elements, so it will all look really beautiful and all part of the Spice Rack brand identity in terms of color. The next thing that I did was I moved on to the social media assets. So these are just sort of examples of what their photography style could potentially look like, what their social media could potentially look like. So it's always nice to include these in a brand identity project so that the client can see how their brand can live online. So I started to play around with that. I was looking for all sorts of fun ways to incorporate in the brand pattern and the logo, have all these beautiful bright vibrant colors, and then I started thinking of different typography and copywriting that we could use, so the freshest ingredients. So I eventually settled on a primary and secondary font for the copywriting used on social media. Both of them are very fun, playful and quirky fonts, which really lends itself to the rest of the brand, because that is the brand keywords and essence that I wanted to bring through in this branding. I don't want it to be stone cold. I don't want it to be minimalist. I don't want it to be just cut and dry. This is something that's fun and really lets you experiment with your your flavors and freedom for cooking. So this is now the render that I have from Pacdora that I popped back into Illustrator, and I'm just adding the brand pattern, making it a bit more closely related to the brand. I then added the logo onto a beautiful image with chilies, and then I also decided to put all the logos into one. This is the markup that I found on Envato Elements. Again, you can see them in the link in my description. I decided to mock up 2 different ones so you can see the difference between paprika and wild garlic. Paprika's obviously got the red in the branding on the label. Wild garlic has the yellow in the branding on the logo. So I aligned all of that together. I recolored the artwork back into our brand colors just for that beautiful sleek arrangement, just so it all looks nice. pop that back into Illustrator so we can export it out nicely. And this is the final stuff. I really hope you enjoyed this video and kind of saw my process from start to finish, and you can see how much work actually goes into doing a brand identity project. It's not something that you can just do simply like in 5 minutes. It is a full process. There's a lot of thinking, a lot of research, a lot of stuff that goes on behind the scenes in terms of strategizing and brand keywords and thinking of your target audience and where's this brand identity going to live, and is it going to be for print, if it's going to be for digital, is there packaging involved, all of those different things that make up your brand identity. You have to think of your brand colors and your brand fonts and typography and a submark logo and a secondary logo and a primary logo. Oh my goodness, I'm running out of breath. And your brand pattern and your icons and social media examples and print adverts examples. So there's a lot of stuff to consider when doing a brand identity, but it is lots of fun. And when you've been doing this for as long as I have, it's something that I thoroughly enjoy doing. If you want to show your support for this channel, please don't forget to give this a thumbs up and subscribe if you want to see more content like this. I offer a lot of graphic design advice, tips, tricks, running my own freelance business, dealing with clients, networking, all sorts of stuff like that. So if that's something that you'd be interested in, feel free to subscribe. If you enjoyed this video, maybe you want to check out this video. It's very similar. It's another brand identity process video that I did, and I really enjoyed making it. So check this one out. I hope you have a great day wherever you are in the world, and I'll see you soon. Bye.